Welcome to Cape Breton Movers and Shakers, where we have conversations with people who are doing good things here in Cape Breton. I'm Richard Lorway, president of goCapeBreton.com, and today I'm talking with Irene Khattar and Patricia Jackson, board members of Hospice Cape Breton in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Richard.
So what is the mission of Hospice Cape Breton?
The mission has been around for a very long time, Richard. We've been functioning for 35 years now, and it's to provide compassionate support to patients and families who are facing end-of-life situations.
Right, and so how you said it's been around 35 years. How did it start?
Well, 35 years ago, there was a public meeting at the old St. Rita's Hospital asking for people who were interested in palliative care and hospice care, which was at that time very much a new concept for us in Cape Breton. It was a movement that had existed in the UK probably for the previous 20 years and had come to Canada with Dr. Balfour Mount probably 8 or 9 years before. And there was just an interest in initiating such care here on the island.
Right. So I guess traditionally, people often at that point in their lives, they would die at home. And then as we move to a more transient society and extended families, less so, then this became more of a need. Is that kind of how it evolved?
I think it also, Dame Cecily Saunders, who was the founder of the modern movement for palliative care in the UK, said that acute care hospitals were no longer appropriate in many occasions for patients who were dying. And that certainly was very true. If you're dying of an acute incident, that is very different from a chronic incident.
Right.
And so the need for additional support for home care for patients who wish to die at home and alternative approach to end-of-life care was very apparent at that time.
Right. And you also support families as well.
Yes, very definitely.
Hugely, yes. And
Right.
Families are central to the experience of losing a loved one. And I think that's one of the, I guess, most important things. We always know that the patient will be cared for physically, medically. We also look psychologically and provide spiritual support if that's necessary. But the families have this sense of needing to understand, and with the opportunity to engage them in understanding and having conversations, they certainly begin to anticipate the grieving process. We can speak a little later on about the bereavement process and our relationship with the Nova Scotia Health Palliative Care Service, where there is a bereavement coordinator, and we work with that individual. So that the bereavement piece is certainly a community piece. The family piece is a community piece. Those that experience hospice palliative care as family members will tend to be healthier in a sense after the loss because of the experience that they've had. So, and family support comes in a dozen other different ways as well.
Well, it is care for the caregivers.
Yes, that's right.
Which is absolutely essential.
Yeah.
By providing care for the caregivers, they are able to be totally aware of the needs of the patient who is terminally ill. So we try to relieve them of other responsibilities and fill those gaps in order that they can be just totally present with the person who's terminally ill. It's very idealistic, but it's also very realistic. And we are incredibly proud of the palliative care team, the Nova Scotia Health Care providers, who are just such a brilliant caregivers and nurses and doctors and social workers. And it's an absolute privilege to work with such an exceptional team.
And we're unique Richard, in the sense that we have a very strong collaborative bond and have from the beginning with the service. We exist to support them as well. They are closest to the patient or to patients and families. And so our belief in that they get the best education possible is part of our mandate. We have ensured that palliative care staff and nursing, the medical staff, the nursing staff get the opportunity to attend conferences, to be involved nationally and provincially and locally. We're there for them in terms of their needs as professional caregivers, and we are there for what they recognize as a family need. So if you have a community health nurse visiting a family and recognizing that, you know, there's need for a piece of equipment or there's need for groceries in the kitchen cupboards, they come back to the society and we will provide for that.
Okay, super. So Patricia, you've been involved from the very beginning, I understand. Is that correct? How did you first get involved in this?
My background was nursing, and I was particularly interested in end-of-life care. I had a personal experience in 1988 when I went to the UK and spent 2 weeks with my sister-in-law who was terminally ill. She was a young woman and experienced exceptional home and hospital and hospice care for her, which really opened my eyes to the possibility. We were very fortunate too, in so much as that I think we have to mention Dale Orchuk at this point, who was the first home support palliative care nurse that was hired in this district to provide support to patients and families at home. And her leadership and knowledge was quite exemplary. She even took the trouble to go to St. Christopher's in London and visit and see how things were being done. And so it's been very much a growing up of the service and the community together. And we truly represent the community.
Okay. And Irene, how did you get involved?
I've been involved for, I guess, about 12 years. And it was just through a request from a board member, in fact, Dr. Anne Francis Dentino, who has been the physician advisor to our board for many, many years. We were coming up on the society was coming up on an anniversary date and just felt that they wanted to build some profile. And I had a background in communications. So that's how I initially became involved. Then I began to hear about the experiences, of course, and then my own mother received palliative care in a nursing home setting, which, you know, I would never have known existed. So it speaks to what we call our circle of care. So it can be the care can be at home, in hospital, in the oncology unit, or in long-term care, which is essentially an elder person's home, and then certainly we now have the hospice as well.
So in the past, I've associated palliative care with, I guess, an area in the regional hospital, and that's your oncology unit, is it?
Yes, it is. Ancala means the harbour, which we named in Gaelic because the harbour is a safe place, and also the views from there look over Sydney Harbour, which I think is very unique. Our dream was always for a freestanding hospice, but John Malcolm, who was CEO of the regional hospital at the time, was very adamant that we needed a centre for acute pain and symptom management of people who were terminally ill. And so the Ancala became a priority before the hospice because people were being cared for at home. And Ancala has served actually since it opened, both as a hospice and as an acute palliative care unit to some extent. But now that we have this absolutely wonderful hospice, the need for patients who can no longer remain at home but do not need an acute care hospital bed can come here, and it's truly exciting. This is a dream come true for so many people. And the response to our community to this is absolutely incredible. I think Cape Bretoners have always demonstrated a need to support one another at good times and bad. And this is a perfect demonstration of Cape Bretoners supporting one another.
Right. So the new hospice, is it open yet?
The building itself is open, or we had a formal opening on the 24th of September. And our intent now is that patients and staff will be able to join us in the building, except that COVID has created a bit of a lag. But we do have an expectation that we will have patients in the near future, and we're very much looking forward to seeing us be totally operational. Nova Scotia Health provides the staff and the operations. So the time lag has allowed for some additional training and role playing and walkthroughs of admission processes and all that it takes. And we've done a fair bit of volunteer training here as well in the interim. So we are ready, waiting, and very excited to have patients and families arrive.
Okay. And are you still fundraising for furnishings and that kind of thing?
Well, we are always open to a donation, of course,
Yes.
of any kind. For most of the society's existence, fundraising has come through memorial donations and certainly family donations and small fundraisers. So we launched a campaign in 2019, and we were maybe 6 months or 8 months ahead of COVID to get started. But we were looking to raise over $4 million. The total value of the project is 5.2, but we did have land and servicing donated by Membertou, for which we will always be indebted. And we just decided to keep on going. And so through the course of COVID and lots of efforts by our volunteers, large and small, in terms of projects and foundations and community efforts, we have completed the campaign. So the building itself is paid, well, it is paid for essentially, but now we will be continuing our fundraising for programs and services, those that we provide to Ankala, and now those that we will provide to those that are in the hospice. So Patricia might speak to that.
And the home.
And the home program.
Too. And incredible thanks to Monica and Brian Shabib, who are our campaign leaders. Their dedication and hard work is absolutely incredible. We would not be here today without them. And of course, the incredible generosity of our community. It is truly amazing that through the last 2 years, we have been able to raise and pay for this, the money and pay for this hospice. It just speaks to the generosity that blows my mind anyway.
So we continue to fundraise, and
we will always need to fundraise.
That's right.
One example is we fund the music therapy program, and as you know, music is incredibly important to Cape Bretoners. They all love it, and so we are extremely proud and extremely thrilled with the music therapy program that we've been able to put in place. And Jill, who is a music therapist, works in homes and in Ankala and will work here too. And there will be other programs that now that we have the freestanding hospice that we would like to implement and move forward with. So the sky's the limit at this point.
And we also have programs that have been in place for a number of years. The education program, as I mentioned earlier, for both volunteers and nursing staff. And the volunteer program is led by a Nova Scotia Health person, Lisa McNeil Campbell, who does a wonderful job. And the hospice provides all of the support funding that they need. So baking supplies and jackets and flowers, anything that they need to make a day brighter for a patient, we certainly fund. We have a Noel nursing program that we support. So when a family needs a night or two just to get some sleep or to have a slight break, we can provide that kind of funding support for the qualified person to go in. We provide funds for special events. We've had, I can't imagine what we'll do here, because on the unit, on Ancala, there have been weddings and graduations, and all on a small scale, but very important to families at particular times.
Yeah.
So it's very much the softer, warmer side of patient and family needs that we're here to provide.
And do you look for volunteers? You recruit them?
We will need some more volunteers. I'm not aware of how many Lisa has been looking to educate more volunteers. I'm not aware as to how many more she needs at the present time. We're going to need gardening volunteers too. We have created, and I should say Gary Messick of Sydney Landscaping has created a truly exceptional garden out the side of the hospice here. And we're so incredibly proud of it because we can wheel the patient's beds out into the courtyard garden. So imagine we can wheel them out there and we can provide beautiful music for them out there, and it's a truly lovely setting with the trees around and the birds singing, and really it's making the most of every single moment that we have. Palliative care is not a morbid thing at all.
No,
it is a very joyful thing. We try to make the most of every precious moment. And it gives us all a tremendous amount of joy too, I think, Irene.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does, because you see the best of everyone, I think, and that's one of the things that the volunteer program always provides, is that when a volunteer comes into your room, it's for conversation or to offer you a tea biscuit or have just a few moments of pleasure. They're not there to discuss medical issues or chronic illnesses. There's a special group of medical staff that deal with that in a very gentle and caring way. But the volunteers augment that with a degree of normalcy, I think, is what it is. And it's just wonderful to see. And generally our volunteers will say they consider it a privilege. They're not depressed or bothered. They're a listening ear at times for families. They're making soup or tea or whatever for them, and somebody just needs to talk and have someone listen. They're happy to do that.
And if people are interested in volunteering, how do they just contact you on the site, or?
Well, they can, if they go, there's two ways to do it. One of them is directly with Lisa McNeil Campbell at novascotiahealth.ca, but probably what could be simpler is going to our website, which is hospiceCapeBreton.org, and go to the volunteer section, and there's a link to an application form. There's several stages to becoming a volunteer. There's a screening and interview process. There is an on course that's taken, and then we have an in-person experience with Patricia and Dale Orchuk, and they outline the history, the essence, the true meaning of hospice. So it takes a bit of time. I think over the years, there have been about 80 volunteers on Kala. So the intent is ultimately we'll probably need close to 100 here, but there's roles at the reception desk, there's roles in the kitchen, there are roles sitting at the bedside, so not everybody does the same thing.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, I don't know. I'll put links to all those things you mentioned in the article itself at the bottom, so people want to inquire further, they can follow the link and get to you.
Okay.
I think
That's
it's a wonderful place to end. I've been through it with my parents, of course, and there are positive things. I mean, it's a natural process. We're all going to die at some point someday. So, you know, I think what you guys do is amazing.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you for your interest in what is happening. We really appreciate it.
All right. I've been speaking with Irene Khattar and Patricia Jackson of Hospice Cape Breton, and we'll see you next time on Cape Breton Movers and Shakers.